when I say creating enduring success, like what does that mean to you?
Yeah. It's funny because career for a long time was a really big and important part of it. And I think, I had a lot of blessings when I was young, really great mentors, people that have, influenced me in ways. And one of the things that happened to me when I ended up in New Mexico, I had started a PhD in literature, thinking that's what I wanted to do, and ended up hating it and had dropped out, really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I actually went out to New Mexico on a rock climbing trip and just fell in love with it after living in Florida my whole life. And what they have in New Mexico is a lot of national laboratories, so places where they employ people who are in the sciences. Well, I had also almost minored in physics. I was very indecisive in college. And it was one of
Wow.
those things where it was like, all right, I have writing skills, I have science skills. What can I do with that? And I ended up in a job at the National Laboratory as a science writer. And one of the things that they did there, because it was a large organization, it was at that time managed by the University of California, they put everyone through the old school Franklin Covey planner. And so I'm dating myself. So anybody who
Oh,
reads
oh,
that,
Christina, I'm with you. Yes, yes.
but it was such an amazing thing. And I think the generations behind it, there's never been anything that's really replaced it since technology became the norm for organizing your calendar. But the thing that struck me the most about it when I was so young was that they made you write your personal mission statement. You had to write down what you wanted your life to be about. And I guarantee you, anybody who's on this call that's in their 20s, you don't have a clue what your life is actually going to be about. But what it's really doing is helping you to
Wow.
start thinking that way. And so enduring success has always been for me sort of chasing your bliss, sort of following that dream of like, how do I want my life to evolve into change? And in my early stages of that, a lot of it was about trying to achieve stability. So I came from a very poor background, grew up in Orlando, Florida. My mom was a single working mom with two small children in the 1970s. So we were, sort of the product of the Vietnam War, like so many families back then, where the husbands came home and the marriages fell apart. And she somehow managed as a secretary, because that was the path that was available to a lot of women back then, to buy her own home and to set us up in a way that was stable and to teach us that like the way to do this is not to go into debt. So I left with some good lessons even from my mom, and realized like what I need to do is make sure that I always have a stable income. And with so many false starts, like, am I going to major in lit? Am I going to major in physics? Am I going to major in English? Which is what I ended up getting my major in just so I could graduate. It was nice to fall into a career that worked. And I probably would have died there, doing what I did because, like, wow, I've achieved it. I got stability, except that I was always looking over the horizon of where am I going next? And then meeting my husband. My husband was the one that had the entrepreneurial dream. And we had our little iMac, back in the day. And he got on the iMac and was researching, like, how do you start a business?
The little iMac or the
Yeah. Ours was green. You had to pick your color back then. But
yeah.
it was something that he discovered. He discovered franchising. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but he, read about it and, started teaching me about it. And then we went to a site that still exists today. It's still how many people discover a franchise business, called Entrepreneur Franchise 500. So Entrepreneur Magazine puts out this list, and that's where he found Curves. And I told him,
Oh
he's like,
my God.
you should check this out. And I told him, you are cuckoo. You are crazy. I am never going to leave my career to do this crazy little, 1,200 square foot gym. Like, this is bizarre. Because back in the day, all that existed was Golds and these big, massive gyms. Bally's was the big brand where you had to pay $2,000 even to get in the door. And I could not relate to it on any level. But he convinced me to drive up and visit one, because this was before it became a phenomenon. And I thought, you know what? This is a concept that makes a difference for people. And franchising seems to be a model that's going to support us. So let's take the risk. Let's do it. And
Wow.
so it became another step in that path of looking at stability, stability, stability. But beyond just the stability, it was really trying to look at things where you could make a difference. And that's what struck me about it, was that, here I was, doing great work in the sciences, but was it really impacting people in a very personal way? And what I loved about that first jump into entrepreneurship is the mission. The mission was strengthening women. And it was an
Mhm.
incredible mission that thousands and thousands of people resonated with, and that was much needed. I mean, we basically invented boutique fitness, what exists today with, all the Orange Theories and the Pure Bars and the, exponentials and all these things would not exist were it not for the innovation of that brand. And so it was a real privilege to be involved with it.
It's a beautiful journey, and that journey continued then to lead you to help strengthen women even bigger and more so as you became a chief executive of franchise companies. So, I mean, it's really an amazing journey that you chose to take that risk. But then because of that risk, you've been able to impact the success of so many others and a a lot of female driven franchise communities.
For
So
sure. Yeah, it's an interesting thing you say that, because I never, if people who knew me when I was in college were going to do the sort of superlatives things, I would have been least likely to major in business. It just wasn't who I was. But what I discovered in that was that business, in a way, like you say, it's a way to make a difference for people. It's a way to influence people, and becoming an employer. What a weird feeling to go from, living like my mother did, where I was an employee, and in that mindset, to thinking I'm going to be a business owner and I'm going to employ people. And suddenly you realize that the boss seems like they have it easy, but the boss actually has a ton of responsibility. And that responsibility is, giving paychecks to people who are in the position that my mother was when she was trying to make her ends meet and find her first steps forward and influence her daughters to make good choices. And it was a very powerful thing. And then franchising generally, what you find in that world, because it is so entrepreneurial and so many people have origin stories like mine, is that it is a very mentor-oriented environment. Like, people want to help other people. That's what franchising is really all about, is helping people find a pathway to getting out of the sort of world of glass ceilings and into something where there is no ceiling. You can go as far as you're willing
yeah.
and able to go with the skill sets that you have. So it was something I fell in love with immediately, and I don't know, it just resonated with me.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Choose and Become interview series. To check out more episodes, go to www.trishkendall.com/podcast, or go to any of your favorite podcast channels, including YouTube, under Trish Kendall Speaks, and you'll find this interview and more. Choose and become.